What the fuck is this?
If you have seen my previous video on the subject, you know I'm not one of those who thinks the Rings of Power is worse than a crossover between Disney Star Wars and Captain Marvel.
No, God!
As a matter of fact, I thought it did actually pretty well based on what was expected from it. On that same video though, I pointed out what I thought was the only real issue with the series, Galadriel.
Galadriel.
Yeah, that's what I said, Galadriel.
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 Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
And even though I didn't think it was a major issue for the series for the first 2 episodes, since we have all these different stories to follow, by the end of the 4th episode this starts to become a huge issue. Because, well, she's supposed to be the main character in this. Her story is the one supposed to tie all of this together. Galadriel's story starts with her telling the tale that will be the basis for everything that will happen in the Rings of Power. The war against Morgoth and his apprentice Sauron. And already in her telling of the story, we run into some issues. Galadriel's retelling of the war is really vague. Vague to a fault.
In the end, Morgoth would be defeated.
How?
His orcs had spread to every corner of Middle-earth, multiplying ever greater under the command of Sauron.
Okay, so how does that work? Were the orcs hidden? Nobody knew where the orcs were? If nobody knew, then how did people even know about Sauron? And if people knew, why didn't anybody do something about it?
My brother vowed to seek him out and destroy him, but Sauron found him first.
Okay, and how does that work? Was her brother some kind of spy and Sauron's spy killed him first? And then she says his vow became hers. For every other main character in the series, we have a little bit of backstory and a plot point that puts that story in motion. Arondir is about to move away from the woman he loves when they find out that orcs have returned. Bronwyn and her son are forced to flee their land because of the approaching corruption. Elrond is kind of an outcast in Lindon.
The council regrets to inform you, you won't be permitted to attend the next session.
When he and his friend Durin, a fiery dwarf family man, are interested in building a tower that will be part of the events that will mold the story of the Lord of the Rings as we know it, and Nori is from a race that just keeps out of everyone's way, when a mysterious man falls from the sky near her people's camp and changes everything. They're not deeply complicated characters, but their motivations are simple enough for us to get invested in them, and more importantly, we get to actually see what happens and how they react to it and how it affects them. Meanwhile, all we have from Galadriel is this very confusing and cold retelling of Middle-earth history. By the time we start following Galadriel's story, she has already been looking for Sauron for centuries. And why is she doing it? Because, according to her story, she saw on her brother's body what she assumes is a mark left by Sauron himself. And what led her to believe any of this?
I don't know.
But watch her brother died. How is this not enough? That's not the point. The point is that we don't get to see it. We don't get to witness her brother's death through her eyes. We don't get to see what this meant to her. We are only told that he died in a war and that now she's going to continue his quest. We don't even get to know how she was before all of this happened and how it affected her or changed her life. So her company tell her they will no longer endure this nonsensical search for something they don't even know is real. And from this point on, Galadriel's entire character comes down to her going around trying to convince everybody that she's not crazy and that the Sauron threat is real, while antagonizing everybody and acting like a crazy person. She's then ordered to go to Valinor with her company, but then jumps ship in the last moment and is left adrift in the middle of the Sundering Seas. And her second episode is actually pretty decent as she goes through some hardships and ends up meeting Halbrand and Elendil and manages to make her way to Numenor. Once in Numenor, the craziness starts all over again. Galadriel is quick to antagonize the Númenórean queen, making demands seconds after meeting the woman. Elendil then agrees to take her to the nearest library for research and... Seriously, what the fuck is this? She then learns after 5 minutes in the library, by coincidence,
That's Joe incidents with a C.
something she hadn't figured out in all centuries she spent chasing Sauron. The mark on her brother is a map. So, how does that work now? Why would Sauron leave a map on a corpse? And why would he leave a map for the very people who are trying to find and kill him? How did Galadriel, in centuries, not see the resemblance between the sigil and the map? How did she not come across this place in the Southlands in all of her travels? This woman traveled for centuries.
I must be blind.
Yes, I guess you might be, lady. You should really have that checked out. She then goes back to the city and resumes antagonizing the queen and everybody. The fact that Halbrand calls her out on this, though, makes me hopeful that this is actually something the writers are aware of and that will be addressed as she grows as a character. But even if that happens, we're still stuck with a pretty fucking annoying main character for half a season. Yeah, and I'm aware there's a lot of nitpicking here. But do you know when nitpicking mostly appears? When you're not that into the story that is being told. And I'm really not into Galadriel's story right now.
Galadriel.
You see, elves in this series have this cold, distant demeanor and don't seem to understand the nuances of human interactions or relationships very clearly. Aaron doesn't understand why Durin is angry at him for not texting him in like 20 years and even missing his marriage and the birth of his children. This, on paper alone, poses a major challenge in engaging your audience with your main character. Then the actress Morphet Clark overplays this to the point where Galadriel is just unlikable. She only has two modes, cold and distant, and confrontational. And while those may be traits fitting for an elf, I'm not sure you want those for your main character. The reason Arondir and Elrond work is because the show is quick to assign human traits to them. Arondir has his romantic relationship with Bronwyn, and Elrond has his friendships, first with Galadriel and then with Durin. Galadriel has none of that. From the moment we meet her up until now, all she has is this unwavering drive to find Sauron based on a story that she told us, based on events that we didn't even get to see. So we end up with a character that by definition is cold and distant, with the actress overacting the shit out of it, and that is giving no real motivation or any human traits for us to get invested in anything about her. It is just really fucking hard to connect with this character right now. And you know what? We are already past mid-season, and while I'm still entertained by everyone else's story on the show, this is supposed to be the main story. Sure, the ones involved in the creation of the Rings of Power are Elrond, Durin, and Celebrimbor, but the show's main character is Galadriel, and I really hope this gets better. Maybe the dynamic between her and Halbrand or Elendil can insert some humanity in her character, and I really hope it does, because right now Galadriel is the worst part of the Rings of Power.